This week at Bungie, we get some really exciting news for those of you out there looking for additional reasons to run old content like dungeons and raids. What's going on, Guardians? My name is the Blacklink, and today is Thursday, April 14th, 2022. And you know what that means. It's time for this week's issue of the Bungie Weekly blog, This Week at Bungie. And man, do we have some great news for you. If you are a fan of the old Age of Triumph back in Destiny 1, towards the end of that game's lifespan, where Bungie sort of revamped and brought back some of the older raids and put them on a rotation that made them worthwhile for running again, I've got some good news for you. No, we're not having Age of Triumph here in Destiny 2, but it seems like we're taking another step towards that. Let's go ahead and dive on into this week's TWAB. In a section titled Dungeons and Raids, we learn about the incoming Master Valve the Disciple, as well as what's going to be happening with some of the other raids still available in the game. Here's what Bungie had to say. Before diving into what's next for activities like raids and dungeons, we did want to shout out that players can finally take Rolk's kicks to the face at an even higher ferocity, because Master Valve the Disciple is dropping next week. For the deets regarding the ramped up difficulty, Guardians should know that the power level is 1580 with a seasonal cap at plus 30. For those challenge hardy players, completing challenges at master difficulty will offer progress towards the raid seal. Each encounter completed also has the chance to drop an adept version of a given weapon for the raid. It's a neat way to up the ante a bit when taking on the more challenging aspects of Destiny 2. Master Valve the Disciple drops next week on April 19th, so make sure to knock out any leveling needed and get that gear in tip-top shape, because master difficulty is never something to be taken lightly. But wait, there's more. As players continue exploring the throne world and uncover the true nature of the Witness's influence, we've heard your desire for reasons to return to previously released raid and dungeon content loud and clear. Amen to that, by the way. One way we're freshening up the raid and dungeon experience in Destiny 2 is by developing a new rotation of featured content that we think you'll like starting in Season 17. This is designed to make raid and dungeon content a bit more enticing over the course of a season, while also providing more ways to play when jumping into different activities with friends and clanmates. Essentially, we're breaking up our new rotator system into seasonal and weekly categories so that players can have a little additional freshness when taking on the weekly hunt for power. Let's start with our seasonal rotation, since this implementation is going to be short and sweet. Each season, the newly released raid and dungeon will grant Pinnacle rewards for all encounters. As an example, in Season 17, Valve the Disciple and an upcoming redacted dungeon will be the ones that are going to be dropping Pinnacles in every encounter. Outside of those, Bungie's going to have a raid rotator and a dungeon rotator, each offering a Pinnacle reward once completed. For those wondering about the weekly rotation, this particular inclusion will have a chance to feature all raids and dungeons not listed as the seasonal rotation. Want to revisit the Vex and Garden of Salvation? Do it. Want to go toe-to-toe with Riven because you like to feel hungry for that wildly impressive final encounter? You're weird, but you can do that for Pinnacle rewards when it's the featured raid that week. As for rewards, what's going to be different there? Well, for the weekly rotation, completing the final encounter in any of the chosen raids or dungeons will award a Pinnacle drop from a weekly challenge. For any raid or dungeon that offers a higher difficulty, such as Master Vault of Glass, that higher difficulty will also be available to select should players be itching for an additional challenge. And if you're somebody who likes farming, Bungie's got something for you too with this new rotator system. All lockouts on encounter rewards for legendary gear are being removed, which means all legendary drops in both raids and dungeons will be 100% farmable if you so choose. So if you're out there trying to get your specific raid or dungeon gear, you're going to be able to farm those encounters until you get the rolls that you want. This is fantastic news in my opinion. Destiny still has a plethora of great in-game content to engage in. It's still a lot of fun to go and run Valve the Disciple. It's still a lot of fun to go and run Vault of Glass. And I think Bungie putting some of that content on a weekly rotator so that you can also get Pinnacle rewards from it is a great option for players out there who don't just want to spend all their time in Grandmaster Nightfalls or doing the usual ritual playlist run each and every week. It worked in Destiny 1 with Age of Triumph. It provided a great avenue for people to go back, run some of that old fun content for new rewards or for rewards that are up to date in terms of power. And I think this is going to provide much more accessibility for those people who are still pursuing Pinnacle Light. Overall, this is an incredible change. It's something I cannot wait for. And the only thing I dislike is that we have to wait until Season 17, which is of course going to be the season after next season. But again, for that weekly rotation, completing the final encounter of any of the chosen weekly raid or dungeon is going to award you some Pinnacle drops that are going to be tied to a weekly challenge. Overall, it's great news and I'm really happy to hear about it. But beyond that, we've got a few patch notes to cover before the end of this week's swab. This is a preview for a patch that's going to be dropping next week on April 19th. Here's what Bungie changed. First off, we got an update for the Wellspring attack. They fixed an issue that could cause teams to incorrectly wipe during a master Wellspring when an objective is completed with only a few seconds left on the timer. They've also added a failsafe so that the carryable object in both the ritual and the boss phase of a Wellspring won't spawn out of bounds. Then, Altar of Reflection. They fixed an issue where players could not complete the evidence board quest report Altar Reflect due to Altar of Reflection not showing up properly. After that, a couple fixes for Vow of the Disciple. They fixed an issue where Rolk would suddenly become shy and no longer transition back to his initial phase properly, effectively blocking progress in the encounter. And they fixed an issue where the Caretaker's dynamic health threshold UI would not consistently display for all players. Next up, Trials of Osiris. This is something they talked a little bit about over the course of last weekend. They fixed an issue where players were not receiving the expected rewards on post-flawless wins. Hopefully you guys farmed up that Shayura's Wrath while you could. After that, we've got a few text chat changes, but a pretty big change to weapon crafting. They've now added a consumable item that allows viewing of element counts. This can be acquired through the Relic Conduit, and it is not a limited item. You can discard and reacquire it anytime. This is to address some of the concerns that a lot of players had, that there was no general way to check exactly how much of any particular element you had at any given time without going to the Enclave itself. So there's an interesting way to kind of work around that. After that, artifact change. Players with all 25 artifact mods unlocked can still reset the artifact for no additional glimmer cost. Once all 25 artifact mods are unlocked, resets from that point on are free. Because of course, once you've got all the mods, it doesn't really make sense for A, you to be resetting it, and B, for Bungie to be charging you to reset your artifact. Out of that, we've got some ability changes. They fixed an issue where Devour would sometimes grant less buff time if multiple targets were killed in quick succession. And they've added aim assist targeting to enemy Axion Bolt's secondary projectiles to help players hit bolts that are chasing both themselves and fellow allies. If you're somebody who's been playing around in PvP a lot, you'll probably have noticed that Axion Bolts were a little bit difficult to target and shoot if they were chasing you. So Bungie's added some aim assist to that so that you can actually have an easier time targeting them. Additionally, this upcoming patch will also tackle notable stability issues and crash fixes. Xur's wonky stats for his wares and Rahul's destination materials for sale will resume rotating at reset. These are just a few of the tweaks you can expect in the greater patch notes that we'll be getting, again, for the patch that's going to be dropping next Tuesday, April 19th. But alright, Guardians, that's pretty much it for the biggest bits of news contained in this week's issue of the Bungie Weekly blog, This Week at Bungie. Really exciting stuff with the weekly and seasonal rotators there. I really cannot wait for that to go into effect, and I'm really excited to hear how you Guardians feel about it as well. Oh, additionally, that community poll has had its results come in, and as expected by a lot of people, Team Mechs did indeed win out against Team Monsters. So you can look forward to getting some Gundam-like ornaments sometime in the future. But that's the news, and those are my thoughts. Be sure to leave me yours down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to drop a like, make sure you subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest stuff we're putting out. I'm out for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I am the Black Link. You Guardians, stay frosty.